Thank you very much. Good morning. All right. Are we okay up there? All right, there we go. I remember when I had to let my children go. The first time, Alicia was 18 years of age. She had just gotten back from spending the summer at Broken Arrow Ranch in Kansas, working. And she was getting ready to go to Southwestern. She wasn't back home for more than a couple of weeks. And Sarah and I were packing up the van, and we took her down to Southwestern. We unloaded her things, helped her get settled into her dorm room, said our goodbyes, and then we got back in the van. We drove home, and I remember that there was this quiet. Not the kind of quiet you enjoy, the kind you feel. An empty space where someone used to be. Tabby and Gabe were still home, so life kept moving forward. Then a few years later, I took Tabby, Alicia, and Sarah to the airport. Tabby and Alicia were heading to Antillean University in Puerto Rico. Sarah went with them to help them get settled. And I remember standing there watching them go. This time when I went home, it was just Gabe and I. Sarah, of course, joined us a week later. And for the next 8 years, for most of those 8 years, there was about a year and a half where Sarah's dad was with us, but for most of those 8 years, it was just the three of us. But then came the day I knew was coming. The summer after Gabe graduated from Davis, we packed up his things, took him to Euless, Texas, where he would stay with Tabby and her husband while he started college. We unloaded the car, we said our goodbyes, and then Sarah and I drove home. I remember walking into the house, walking down the hallway into his room, which had previously been Tabby's room, which before that had been Alicia's room. And realized for the first time in 29 years, we didn't have any children in the house. And I cried. And I don't mean just a few tears. Because at that moment, I realized that a part of my life was over. It was done. And here's what struck me later. None of those moments were sudden. They had been coming the whole time. Every stage, every year, every milestone was moving towards the same destination: letting go. Not all at once, but slowly, intentionally, and sometimes painfully. And here is the tension that every parent lives in. We are called to love deeply, but never to possess ultimately. And what I realized later is that parenting doesn't end in a single moment. It ends in 1,000 small releases that lead up to the final one. We don't usually recognize it while it's happening. We just think we're moving schools, changing seasons, celebrating milestones. But looking back, I can see it more clearly now. Every goodbye was not an interruption of parenting. It was the fulfillment of it. Because parenting was never meant to keep them. It was meant to prepare them to leave well. Psalm 127, the passage that was read to us this morning, says, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him." This is a powerful reminder that children are not merely responsibilities that we carry or accomplishments we produce. They are gifts that we receive. They are blessings from the hand of God, expressions of his generosity and his grace. A heritage is something valuable entrusted to our care. A reward is something to be treasured with gratitude. And that changes how we see parenting. Because if children are gifts from God to us, then parenting becomes more than providing food, shelter, and direction. It becomes a sacred calling to nurture what God has placed in our hands. We are called to love them deeply, teach them faithfully, guide them wisely, and cherish them gratefully. And yet every gift from God comes with responsibility. Our children are not given to us so that our lives revolve around controlling them, but so that we may help prepare them for the life that God has for them. We receive them in dependence, we raise them with faithfulness, and in time we trust God with the future that we can't control. Or as Khalil Gibran put it, your children are not your children. They come through you, but not from you. Though poetic, it echoes a truth that the Scripture makes clear. Children are first a gift from God before they're ever a task for us. Today and this weekend, we celebrate what? It's Mother's Day. Mother's Day, as we know it, began in the early 1900s through the efforts of Anna Jarvis. She wanted a day to set aside to recognize the quiet, often unseen sacrifices of mothers, the love that gives, nurtures, and shapes a child for life. And maybe this is why this day matters so much, because motherhood is rarely built in grand moments. It is built in small, faithful acts, late nights, early mornings, countless prayers, daily sacrifices that no one else sees. In many ways, Mother's Day is a celebration of love poured out over time. Love that receives children as a gift and gives itself for their good. And nowhere is that seen more clearly than in the story of a woman named Hannah. which, by the way, was our middle daughter's middle name. Before Hannah was a mother, she was a woman in pain. 1 Samuel tells us that she could not have children in a culture where that carried deep emotional weight, and it brought social shame. Year after year she prayed, and year after year she wept. This is not a casual story. It's a story of longing. She goes to the temple and pours out her soul before God so intensely that the priest initially misunderstands what she is doing. But God hears her, and God answers her. And then once God answers the prayer, something interesting happens. Hannah says, I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked for of him. So now I do what? What does it say? I give him to the Lord. For his whole life, he will be given over to the Lord. Here the story shifts. The answer to the prayer becomes the offering. She brings Samuel to the temple, and she leaves him there. Try to feel that moment. Not just read it. She walks away. No updates, no phone calls, no Facebook posts, right? No cards in the mail. Just trust. A mother once said, raising children is like holding water in your hands. You can cup it carefully, but if you grip too tightly, you lose it. That's Hannah. The very thing she prayed for, she had to release because she understood children are gifts from God, but they are not given to replace God. And what makes Hannah's story even more powerful is that she doesn't release a child that she doesn't want any longer. She releases a child that she desperately wanted. She doesn't give away something that is unwanted. She gives back something she loves more than her own life. That's what makes it so sacred and so painful, because every parent knows this tension. The deeper the love, the harder the release. And Hannah shows us something profound here, that faith is not only what we pray for, it is what we surrender after God answers. And in that surrender, she is saying something every parent must eventually say in their own way. Lord, I trust you more than I trust my ability to hold on. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, there is a time for everything. Parenting is not one moment of letting go. It's a series of them. They leave the womb. They leave your arms. They leave your presence. They leave your authority. They leave your home. And every step feels like loss, but it's actually a part of the design. As children grow, especially into adolescence, they begin asking, who am I? What do I believe? What is mine? And what have I just inherited from my parents? This is the stage where identity is formed. And if we don't allow that process, children often become dependent and unsure, or they rebel just to create distance. And we've all seen both. The young adult who cannot make a decision without calling home, or the one who rejects everything they were taught just so that they can feel independent. Both are struggling to become who they were meant to be. But when parents guide and release appropriately, children become grounded, thoughtful, and anchored. Parenting is not raising children who need you forever. It is raising adults who walk with God without you. In Exodus chapter 2, we read about another mother. It says, "Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile." Before we even know her name, we can feel the tension. A child is born into danger. Pharaoh has decreed that Hebrew baby boys are to be killed. And into that fear, a mother gives birth. Her name is Jochebed. She hides her son for 3 months. Every cry is a risk. Every sound carries fear. She does everything that she can, but eventually, what she can do is no longer enough. And this is the moment every parent faces. Everything that she can do is no longer enough. After this is the moment that she takes into her hands. Her ability to protect has reached its limits, and she makes a basket carefully, intentionally. She coats it with tar and pitch, preparing it to survive the river. This is not abandonment. This is love doing everything it can before letting go. She places him among the reeds, and then she releases him. She does what she can. She makes the basket. She prepares it. She chooses where to place it. But after that, it's out of her hands. She can't control the river current. She can't control the outcome. She can't control the future. And that is parenting. Do what you can. Trust God with what you can't. Every parent has a river moment. You've built the basket. You've provided values, faith, wisdom. But you can't control the river, the culture, the choices, the direction. And everything in you wants to reach back in, but you can't. Faith is not proven in what we hold. It is proven in what we release. And here is the quiet truth. The river that she feared became the path that God used. The current she could not control carried Moses exactly where he needed to go. The place that feels most uncertain to you may already be under the direction of God. Yes, we do have a job to do. We read about it in Deuteronomy. It says, "These commandments that I give to you today are to be in your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up." Since we're going to release them, we have to make sure that we're releasing them in the right direction. Not towards us, but towards God. And this brings us to two women we might otherwise overlook. Not because they're unimportant, but because their influence was quiet. The Apostle Paul writes to a young pastor by the name of Timothy. And he says, "I am reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother, Lois, and in your mother, Eunice." This is the first time that we meet these two ladies. There's no dramatic story connected to them. There's no crisis moment, just a legacy. Lois and Eunice. A grandmother and a mother who passed down something real. Not just beliefs in certain doctrines, but faith that lived. They didn't control Timothy's future, but they shaped his foundation. And that foundation carried him when they were no longer guiding him daily. The greatest gift that you can give your child is not success. It is a living personal faith in God. Let's come back to where we started. A driveway, a dorm room, an airport, a bedroom that suddenly feels too quiet. I remember walking into Gabe's room after we had dropped him off. By the way, it's been a long time since some of them have been home. Some of you have never met them. That's our family there. We don't always look like that. My oldest daughter, we raised her better than what you see in this picture. That was probably taken actually just before we moved to Sulphur, Oklahoma. So that would have been 25 years ago. They've grown up a little bit since then. I told you about that room. It belonged for Alicia for a couple years. When she went off to college, Tabby took it over probably, Alicia came back, on her breaks, but Tabby took it over pretty quickly. When Tabby left, it stayed empty for a couple years because she was at Antillian and she kept coming back, and that was still her room. Then when Tabby got her apartment in Bedford, Texas, in 2010, Gabe moves into the room. I remember when Tabby had that room. She had on her door 10 rules. I don't remember what the first 9 rules were. The 10 Commandments, according to Tabby, I guess. I don't remember what the first 9 were, but I remember the 10th one. It said, "No Gabe." Gabe had a way of needling her, and she needed a place to go where he would not get to her. A lot of memories in that room. A lot of memories. And so when I went in that room, it wasn't just Gabe, even though that was 8 years, it was just the 3 of us. It was just the memories of all of them. And the realization that that part of my life is over, it's done. And if you're a parent, you know that feeling. That moment when everything in you wants to hold on, but love calls you to release, to let go. But here's what I didn't fully see in that moment, and what we often don't see in those moments. The moment they leave our hands, they do not leave God's. We were never the ultimate holders. We were stewards. And all along, God has been doing something deeper than we realize. He was not just preparing them, he was preparing us. Preparing us to trust him with what we love most. Luke 15 gives us the final picture. A father watches his son walk away. He lets him go. Not because he doesn't love him, but because love sometimes has to let go. But don't miss this. The father never stops watching, never stops hoping, never stops loving. And when the son returns, he runs. Hannah released and trusted God with answered prayer. Jochebed released and trusted God with the river. I stood in a quiet room and had to trust God with my son. And every parent in one way or another will stand in that moment. So when you find yourself there, at the doorway, at the airport, in the silence of a room that used to be full, remember this. You're not losing your child. You're placing them into stronger hands than your own. The same God who guided the river, the same God who received Samuel, the same God who watched over the prodigal, is the same God who is already where your child is going. The river is not random. The future is not uncontrolled. The path is not unseen. God is already there. So hold them with love, guide them with truth, release them with faith, and trust that God is already ahead of them. And if I may, I want to say something here about Sarah. She understood something about parenting very important. She raised our children to be independent, not detached, but strong and capable, able to stand on their own feet with faith in God. And I still remember when our firstborn, Alicia, was just born. Sarah was holding her in her arms, and I still remember to this day, she started talking about our next one. And I remember what I thought. I was thinking, if I just went through what I watched you go through the last 12 hours, the last thing on my mind would be another one. But looking back, I understand, because that is the heart of a mother. She was never trying to keep one child for herself. She was willing to give herself again and again so that our children could grow, mature, and one day walk forward on their own. And much of what our children became came through the quiet strength, sacrifice, and wisdom of their mother. And here's one more truth that strengthens what we do as parents. Our identity is not defined by how long we hold our children, but by how well we have equipped them to live without us. Parenting is not about possession, it is stewardship. Our calling is to guide, protect, and release, to teach, model, and then trust God to continue what we began. When we step back and see parenting in this way, we realize our worth as parents is not measured by the hours that we control, but by the faith we instill and the love we leave behind. Dear Lord, thank you for the children that you've given us, that you've entrusted to us. Give us wisdom to guide, courage to release, and faith to trust you with what we love most. Help us to point them not to ourselves but to you, and when letting go is hard, remind us that your hands are stronger than ours. Amen.